You wrote a really excellent opinion piece in The Guardian a couple of months back titled The Demonisation of NIMBYism. Can you briefly tell us about the article and what prompted you to write it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you're right about those similarities between those situations too, and the sense that people have got an ideal of the sorts of places they'd like to live in, but equally sometimes there's other perspectives that suggest there's a level of entitlement that's undeserved in order to live in the sort of place you want to live in. I mean, that's central to the tension. And the point I was trying to make in the argument, I suppose, is that urban change is fairly complex. It's very complex, in fact, and the processes of urban change that we see aren't just led by kind of individual decisions, but rather bigger structural changes. People have got an investment in the sorts of places they want to live. Many people do. And they've seen change and they're disappointed by it often. And that's not an illegitimate position to have. What we suggest people are NIMBYs, that's problematic. It's a very pejorative term when others might suggest it's simply a mode of place protection. How do I have the sort of place that I'd like to have? And it's obviously there's big tensions in that because it's sometimes people, effectively shutting the gate behind them. It might be framed to have the sort of place they want to have and everyone else can just suffer. But the other perspective on that is, well, most people know that when they see new developments around them, that will mean there'll be more people, but that won't mean there'll be a new school. It means there'll be more people, but it won't mean there'll be new transport services. So, the lived experience of it is that when your kid's school is bursting at the seams, it's going to be some years, probably by the time they leave, that issue is resolved. That's what people are feeling annoyed about. Obviously, not every example is the same. Obviously, there's situations where it might seem that someone is being unreasonably entitled to protect the sort of place they want to live. But we've seen cities, Melbourne, Sydney, are good examples, undergoing significant structural change over 30 years, really. We're seeing a lot more redevelopment. I live in an area where there's been massive amounts of redevelopment, even in the last 5 or so years, huge amounts in a part of Melbourne that traditionally has been very kind of industrial and has moved rapidly into being highly residential. I also live quite close to Docklands in Melbourne, an area that for 20 years they built a significant suburban development. It took them 20 years to build a school there, and the school's already using neighbouring properties as overflow classrooms. That's the kind of thing people feel upset about. And if that's entitlement, then it says something about how we want to spend money on supporting communities in our cities.